That.
Okay, it says,
Okay, you're recording now.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'll let you go ahead and start talking.
Um, Before I start, let me just do a quick introduction of myself.
Yes.
As I already told you, I'm Maiwa Adebayo. I'm Nigerian. I think from a very young age, I found that I was curious about relationships. In fact, not only relationship, I'm always curious about a whole lot of things. I like to know the intricacies of those things. I like to get to know why is this like this, why is that like that, you know? And this brought me where I am today. So why we'll be doing this is this is a topic that comes close to home. It it's differently because I was actually once in a cross-cultural relationship, and maybe because of my naivety or because I was so young then, I could not see it through. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. To help some other people that are out there that are probably looking to get into one or are already trying to get out, maybe because of the fear. So that's basically why we're doing this, navigating cross-cultural relationships. So over to you. Can you do a brief intro of yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Carly, and I have been in the dating and relationship world now for about 2 or 3 years, maybe closer to three now. And
Okay.
I just started learning a lot about, well, I was raised very traditionally, and like once I
I
got,
could tell.
what's that?
I could tell.
Yeah, yeah. And once I got through high school, I started like going out into the workforce and stuff and just really didn't understand a lot of like the relationship dynamics that people were experiencing and how there was such a
Okay.
lack of like polarity and how women were just not being feminine anymore. And it was a question,
Yeah.
a subject that really it boggled me. And so when I was raised, set apart from that. So I was questioning like who I was. I'm like, why don't I fit into any of these people's, lives and
Yeah.
doing? And so my mom, she was stay at home. And when I started diving into the world of polarity, I started to put a name to how I was raised and what the traditional values were,
Okay.
how we changed and how we evolved out of that. So,
Yeah.
like, once I found that subject, I was like, oh my gosh, I could teach this. It was very serendipitous how I got into it. But I basically started
Okay.
putting labels on it and said, I know this stuff already. It's very intuitive to me because of the way that I was raised. I can have a voice and start speaking up about this, and people need
Yeah.
message. And so that way it can kind of help other girls understand a little bit more about their own femininity and how they've been so conditioned out of that and how we just don't understand men, right? So
Yeah.
I got into that, started speaking up about it, and then started my TikTok. Then I started on Instagram and Facebook Reels. Now I'm all the way
Yeah.
on YouTube creating those longer form content, and I have thousands of girls and guys who regularly watch my content and they like to get that insight because of the way that I was raised. So that's how I got into it.
Uh, it's actually nice. I've seen some of your videos, and I would say what really reeled me in was your scientific approach. Fine, you just told me now that you were raised traditionally, so I understand where a lot of that is coming from. But then when you give your takes on a lot of these subjects, you tend to back it up with some scientific, as a science student myself, I can resonate with those things that you say a lot. So it just fits with what I already know. That's why I love your content so much. I must quickly chip that in.
Yes,
Okay, so
thank you. I love it. I love this
yeah,
part. I love
yeah.
this part because it
Um,
backs it up, you know. It's like it gives people different perspectives to look at it from psychology
exactly.
and biology,
Yeah,
spiritual values, all of it.
exactly. Yeah, to me, I feel they are all woven into one big part. I think you can't leave out the spirituality and just face the psychology. I think they are all just connected together. So, about our topic for today, yeah,
Yeah.
cross-cultural relationships. I think there's a whole lot of fuss about it that shouldn't be really. A whole lot of people try to shy away from it because they feel it's too much work, because they feel, by virtue of the fact that you all are coming from different backgrounds, different culture and tradition and all those things, they feel like it's going to be extra work.
Mhm.
And this is hindering a lot of people from seeing the beauty of what love is really. Because in this world as we have it, I think there are only so many things that actually connect people regardless of their backgrounds.
Mhm.
I think if you mention sports, if you mention music, I think love is another thing that can unite even people from the far ends of the world. Um, but people don't want to put in the work. The thing, what I know is relationships, as it were, it's not for fun. You know, people think it's a destination, sort of like once they're into that relationship, okay, now I'm here. I don't have to do anything again. You know, all those efforts you put into wooing that girl. In fact, it goes both ways now. Not only the man now, even the woman. The woman doesn't put in any effort anymore. The man also doesn't. They just feel we are here now, nothing to do. It shouldn't be like that. I think that's what's causing a whole lot of this setback in the thing. Cross-cultural relationships to me is just as normal as any relationship at all. Forget it. Even if you're from the same geographical location, you are definitely going to have different set of attributes.
Mhm.
So it takes constant work and being intentional on both parts
Mhm.
for you to make it work. Forget about the culture. Obviously, it's going to be uh, more work, but then it takes your intentionality to really let anything work at all for you both. So it's not so much about where you're coming from. It's not so much about the language barrier. It's not so much about any of this, but your intention to make it work. I want to put it to you that, okay, say for instance, I walk into a club this night and I notice you, and in the first instance, I take a liking into you. I'm attracted already. I don't want to know what race you're from, you know. But once we get talking and we start hanging out, and I start seeing some of your other qualities, your characters, and all sorts, I would now know if I'm totally drawn to this person, or okay, I have some things that I'm not totally cool with. Let's see if we can work on that aspect of you. And you also, I think the last thing that comes into mind is the culture, honestly, except for maybe pressure from family and all this. They don't, that's going to be a problem for you. You know all this peer pressure, normal stuff. But if you already like this person, you're not going. I don't think you'll be considering where he's from
Mhm.
or where she is from. Do you
Mhm.
understand? Love supersedes all these things. So that's my take. That's how I think one should look at it. If you're meeting someone for the first time and this person is actually coming from a different background, different race, and all that, does this person look like the person you would understand? Does this person look like someone you would like to be with? I think that should surpass all other factors. What do you think?
Yeah. So it's such an interesting thing because from my experience and my knowledge is the only thing about cross-cultural relationships is we're going to be attracted to what is familiar to us. So that's just how our human brain works is we are going to look for that comfort and that familiarity. And when you have to a man and a woman from different backgrounds and different cultures, in some cases, there is nothing in common. There's nothing really to share just because it's just two different worlds, and we just don't have a lot of the same ethics, same values, the same ways of being raised. So it's just something kind of foreign. But in other areas, like especially if cultures outside of the West, like in the Middle East, come here to the West, then there's more of that, and then they, like, from an early age they have to come here, and then they start to adapt to the ways of the West. Then it
Yeah,
can be more something that can work better, just because the way that we are conditioned here in the West from an early age versus the way that the people in the Middle East per se, especially the men being strong providers, very, very hard workers. If
yeah,
that's not something familiar to a Western woman, then the chances are they're not even going to be attracted to each other, if that makes sense. And I actually have cross cultural in my family. Like, as I was saying, one with my cousin,
yeah,
her husband is from Nigeria, like his family. And then
yeah.
my dad is actually married to a woman who is Mexican. And she grew up in the UK. So, of course, that's still the West. But she also moved back and
That,
from Mexico. So she definitely has some
okay.
of those Mexican and like more, some of the things that they do in their culture. She has a lot of those values in the roots, but also she's been kind of westernized. That's what I call it, westernized.
Yeah,
She's also adapted some of those more Western principles. And so that's why it kind of works. But there's a lot of things also that they do in her culture, her being from Mexico, that us, who we are strictly American, where we're just kind of like,
okay.
what does that mean? Like, what do you mean that your parents come to live with you and your family and your husband after, maybe one of them passes away? And in the West, that's just not normalized anymore, like that's a traditional way of doing things. And I'm all for it. But, people in the West have really been conditioned out of that. And so that's a huge barrier too. But of course, it is something that can totally be worked through. Like I said, he's married to her and her father just passed away. So they plan on taking her mother from Mexico. She lives in Mexico, and bringing her here
Yeah,
to America to live with them so that way she's not alone. However, my dad, his his mom, she lost her husband years ago, and guess what? She still lives by herself. But that's what's normal here in America. So you see how,
yes,
like, you
exactly.
have to like navigate through that kind of dynamic because they're married and they have to kind of sort out for themselves, okay, are we okay with doing this even though my mom is, kind of out on her own, you know like sticking to the principles that you will find works best for you and your relationship dynamic.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I was just talking about just now. You mentioning your dad now, you've just accentuated exactly the point I raised. That it takes some level of compromise. It takes constant effort on both sides. Your dad did compromise, even though he's not used to that culture. He did compromise on the part of your mom to bring the grandma over.
Mhm.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. The thing with people is all these barriers are there. There's no doubt about it. We can't even say there's nothing like that. The barriers are there, and it's obvious to the blind. But if you want to make it work, you can always make it work.
Right.
Over here in Nigeria, for instance, there's a lot of things, even within Nigeria, there are major ethnic groups here. We have the Igbo, we have the Hausa, we have the Yoruba. So it's always seen Yorubas want to get married to Yorubas, Igbos want to get married to Igbos. But then we are so let me say we've gotten out of that shell. Our forefathers were so strict with those intertribal marriages. But now we don't even care anymore. The current generation understands that love surpasses boundaries. You know, it just takes. Of course, you're coming into it knowing fully well that we might not align on this certain path, but how do we now work around it so that it doesn't create a lasting problem?
Right.
That's not the only thing you're going to deal with. Other things are also going to spring up that you're going to have to deal with much later on. So you don't dwell on this particular aspect of our own culture or on this particular aspect of your own culture and just let the relationship run to rains on that.
Right.
So it's a constant thing. Exactly. So the idea is that some people are always looking for perfection. And I think this perfection of a thing is only imaginary. I don't think anybody's perfect anyway. Um, you can be big on some particular qualities while you're less on the other ones. You know, your partner will have to make do with what he has and just accept on other parts or see what he can do to bring you up to the level he wants you to be.
Right.
And likewise, you too. If there are some things about him that you don't really like, maybe because of his background, you can talk about it. If you see it's not budging, it's not something to even argue about. If you can cope with it, fine. If it's something that doesn't hurt or like cause you physical harm or something like that, I think one can live with that. You understand what I mean? So
Mhm.
these are things one will just have to find a way to work around. It's not so much about this is what's going to break this thing, this is what's going to break the camel's back. This can't work just because what it does this way doesn't work well in our own. Do you understand what I'm trying to say now? So that's basically my own standpoint on this whole issue.
Right, right. And I like to call it compromise as well because, again, it's like
You know?
coming from the West, only knowing the ways of the West and being raised in that, which is my whole family, and then getting involved with people outside of the West. And even my dad, his wife, she used to be married to a an Arabic guy. So their daughter
Okay.
is Muslim. So she's also intertwined with all the cross cultural things. And so now she
Yeah.
the Mexican background values. She has the Arabic from her dad, which her dad is very strict on, and he still very much enforces that. And then he's remarried. He has his own other kids now. So she gets that dynamic, but then she also gets a taste of Western principles and how we're operating.
Yeah.
She's going to school and things here. So she's learning so much about each culture and each background. So that way she can, as she gets older, she's only a teenager right now, she can kind of hopefully come
Okay.
to a conclusion and make a decision on which principles she wants to run with, and then which principles that she needs to kind of, say, okay, like this doesn't align with my value system, and then make those decisions for her relationships. Because again, like in her father's culture,
Yeah.
they are very, very strict. The men are solely providers, women are at home having all kinds of kids. But since she's westernized, she gets to kind of say, well, I want to go to school.
Yeah.
I don't want to have kids, at 18 years old and,
Yeah.
leave my father. I can kind of make a life for my own. So
Yeah.
you see those two dynamics that she just really has to figure out for herself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
such an interesting
So
you can go.
it is. It is actually. Exactly. So I'm using this opportunity to put it out there. If you have someone you're dating that's from another culture, I don't think that should be a problem. All you need to do is get involved with each other more,
Mhm.
listen to each other's perspectives, active listening. I'm talking about here, and don't always feel like my cultural values should trump yours. That
Mhm.
will create a problem rather than solve anyone. So everybody's coming in as neutrals. She definitely, if you're complaining about an aspect of her that you don't like, she would also have some things about you that doesn't really sit well with her. So it's all about finding a common ground
Mhm.
and the patience, the willingness to accommodate each other's flaws and all that. That's what makes it work. And this thing, let's even leave like I said earlier, let's even leave cross-cultural relationships, any relationship at all. What makes a relationship work is compromise.
Right.
When you communicate, effective communication, all those things. So you must still apply all this. Like that's why I said the other time that I in fact on the scale of all things that might negatively impact a relationship's trajectory, I feel like the cross culture is the least. I'm sorry, that might be a wrong assumption, but in my opinion, I think like that's the littlest of all the things that may affect your relationship. It comes last in my book. Every other thing that you need to do, we're constantly making noise about it. Do this, active listening, always be compassionate, be kind to one another, listen well, don't always want to be eager to talk, all these things. Communicate your differences and stuff. Once you do this, forget about the background now. I think any relationship with commitment from both parts. Now, I'm not even talking about the usual boyfriend and girlfriend stuff. If you really wanted to work, I'm from a traditional background too. I was raised like that. In fact, averagely, any African will be brought up in a traditional way. You understand what I mean? The usual father has to work his ass off. The mother is a stay-at-home mom, just taking care of the kids and ensure being that glue that keeps the family together. The man is always the one on the field to go. That's how most of us were raised, and I think those things also affect men like us one way or the other. We might not get to talk about it now, but there's something in those mentality. We want to, uh, if not for education now and some kind of exposure that has brought people like me to realize that if you're in that kind of setting, you are you might easily prey on your wife because you feel like you are heaven and earth. Without you, she can amount to nothing. You're providing for her. In fact, you're feeding her, you're clothing her. You can easily want to start to play God over her. You understand? So these things empower men beyond what should be. Do
Mhm,
you understand what I'm saying?
mhm.
So it's all of these things, like I said earlier, are just interwoven, and one has to keep a balance of each and every aspect of it to make any relationship at all, whether cross cultural or not, to make any of these relationships work. That's just my view.
Right. And I look at it through a lens of gender differences because that's what I talk about is the differences between men and women. And in either whatever relationship dynamic that you choose, whether you're from the same background or completely different worlds. We just have to have the basic
Yeah,
understanding of men. So my perspective is very broad because I know how the
yeah,
male brain is versus the female brain, and we have to have that understanding of, okay, we are different, so how do we work with those differences? How do we come together and communicate
exactly.
differences in the best way? And then, I was watching a some kind of crazy reality show. I don't really remember the name of it. It was something similar to like 90 Day Fiance or something like that. And the it was
Okay.
it was a couple on there that she was completely from the West, and he was, I want to say, like from India or something. And I think
Okay.
they had ended up getting married. And in the show, they were showing her going back to his home, and she was, going visit where he grew up or whatever. And basically,
Yeah.
he did all this work in this like apartment that it was like, I guess it was considered like luxury where he was from. I think it was
Okay.
India. And she in the show, she was just having a conniption fit. She was just like raising hell about how he did a horrible job, and the construction of it, just it was, terribly done. And his family was all
Yeah.
with him, and they were like living
Oh,
with him. Yeah, and it was just horrible mismatch because, again, like here in the West, we have a certain kind of luxury. We have a certain kind of luxury that we're
yeah.
used to that other people in other cultures don't have. You know what I mean? So we're conditioned to this certain
Yeah. Exactly.
way of living and this luxury that when we go back to that more not so hot, not so rich way of living, we're kind of like in culture
Yeah.
shock, you know? So
I can relate.
yeah, that created a lot of issues because she was so spoiled, I guess you could say. And he was just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is normal for me, you know?
Yeah. And in fact, that would be even more terrible because the guy will feel like, okay, I'm not a totally poor person. I'm not in abject poverty. I'm well to do here. Why are you not saying this? So I totally understand that part. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
well,
we're so spoiled.
but recently I've been seeing what I started with. You know, I was telling you I was once in a cross-cultural relationship. In fact, with a Russian, if I can remember, Mariana Vasileva, wherever she is. I remember that name. I was young. I think I'm talking about maybe like 12, 13 years ago. And what totally broke us was social media was not as blown as it is today. So we're only communicating via email and we just couldn't keep up.
Mhm,
But I have to admit the cultural difference was there and it really told on the relationship and the way it went. I
mhm,
think if I was as mature as I am now, I think I would have handled things a little bit differently. I think I would have seen it to the end. I think a lot of those things would not have happened. Either way, what I'm trying to say here now is again, cross-cultural relationships, I think are very good, in my personal opinion. I've been seeing a lot of them recently. In fact, on TikTok, you see there's this famous couple. I think the guy is African, then the girl, they always dance, shoot these dance videos and all. I don't know if you know them. I don't
mhm,
even know how they met, but the girl is like from the West, the guy is African. I think they met on social media or something like that, and they connected, and it's just fun. Once their goals align, I think the culture doesn't come into play at all.
mhm,
I don't see it as something serious,
mhm.
honestly. But from your explanation so far, I'm trying to now wrap my head around how it could really pose problems, even when both partners don't want it to. I am trying to understand that. Even the family will also put pressure on some of you, on some of the partners, like, what is this?
Mhm.
This is an abomination, stuff like that. Whereas you already understand, you have an understanding that okay, my partner doesn't see it as an abomination, but because of where I'm coming from, we see it as an abomination. Okay, how can we do this? There is a level of patience it takes on the part of the partner that is in the relationship, not supporters now, not the fans. You know what I mean? So it boils down to the willingness again and the commitment of both partners to want to make it work. I'll keep saying that. I don't think cross-cultural differences might put a strain on the relationship for a start, but before you know it, if both partners are willing, I think that they will find a common ground and it will just be as smooth as it is with any other person anyway.
Right, yeah, that's beautifully said. And also
Yeah.
like pertaining to my kind of content too is um, teaching women that they have to really, really be fully embodied in their feminine energy in order to attract those kinds of men. Because men here in the West have really, really been conditioned out of their natural instinct of like being providers and protectors. And so
Yeah,
a woman has to really become fully embodied in knowing her worth and being able to receive that in order to even
exactly.
attract that. So that's a huge thing for, getting my audience to understand and realize and how to be that feminine woman that can attain that kind of guy, from whichever background that it is,
Yeah.
but someone who hasn't been like conditioned by Western principles.
You said something just now, and I must tell you, I love that topic a lot. A lot of people don't know that. You can totally melt a guy, a macho man, a strong-hearted guy. You can totally melt him with your kindness. When women are in their feminine power, they don't know the kind of power they wield.
Mhm. Yes.
Absolutely. A man will melt.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean? But someone to say, yeah, this is gender equality, whatever a man can do, a woman can do better. You're doing this, I have to do that. If you're saying one, I have to say three. It doesn't work that way traditionally. But once you're in your feminine energy, I can bet you that man will cross the ends of the earth
Yes.
to put you where you need to be.
Absolutely.
So that I totally like how you're I
Oh,
totally like how you are communicating this to your followers, and it's just so nice to know that there are some voices out there that they understand this traditional man and woman. It's so nice. I must commend you for it. Keep up
thank
the good
you.
work.
Thank you so much. And thank you for reaching
Yeah,
out to me in the first place to do this, because I think it's such an
yeah,
interesting topic. And especially from, you're all the way there in Nigeria and I'm here in America. So it's
yeah,
so cool to connect that way. I do want to tell you though,
exactly.
on my screen, it's telling me that we have uh, 6 minutes left before it'll cut us off. I don't know why.
Okay, the recording. No, it's okay. You need to sleep. You told me you've not been having so much sleep
Yeah.
recently
Well, I've been staying up too late working on my content. So,
because you're working your ass off. Do women work this way? It's
yeah,
it's nice.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. It was nice being here. I totally enjoyed this
Oh, yeah, thank you.
conversation.
Do you have a
And
YouTube
I'm
channel?
hoping we can. Oh, of course, yes,
Okay.
I do.
Okay, so I can go ahead and maybe like Dropbox you this session through the recording,
Okay.
and you can go ahead and post it, or I can post it, or we can
Yeah,
both post it. And
we can both post it.
yeah, we can promote it on our social medias. And hopefully we
Okay.
do this again and talk about some more juicy subjects.
Of course, of course. I would appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Thank
It
you for
was nice.
being
It
here.
was really nice talking to you. And I like your scientific insights. Like I said, please keep it up.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Uh,
love that part of it too. And I just hope that other people put it into perspectives other than just like, you know, those extremities of, oh, you're just looking through, a value lens, a biblical lens, which of course I love all that too, but I like to go from every
yeah.
angle so that way it pertains
Yes,
to
exactly.
all. Yeah,
To fully understand why this man does what he does.
right.
Understand how a man's mind works, how a woman's mind works, all these intricacies. Yeah, yeah, it's cool. It's
And
cool
where does it
actually.
root from?
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I think I'll put more scientific research into my content too.
Oh, yay. Good.
You're
I'm glad that
encouraging
I
me.
can inspire you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess
It's
I'm
so
gonna go.
nice. I would love to do this some other time again. Yeah,
Absolutely. And you
we'll
know
be
how
in
to
touch.
find me. You know how to find me on social media and Instagram. So let's connect.
Yeah. All right. All right. Have a nice day.
You too. You
Bye.
too. Bye.